Hey everyone, and welcome to the Uncorked Corner podcast, where we cover the full spread of food and beverage industry topics. My name is Bianca, PR and marketing professional by day and food and wine connoisseur by night.
My name is Nick, an accountant with a passion for barbecue, beer, and whiskey. Today we welcome Julia Helena Hadas. Julia is the author of the new book, Witchcraft Cocktails, that is being released on September 8th.
In today's episode, Julia takes us through her journey from working in metaphysical stores to bartending in California, where she learned to combine her passion for witchcraft with her affinity for cocktails. We discuss the new book, some twists on some classic cocktails, and some magical fall cocktails to enjoy this season.
If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to us.
Welcome, everyone. Today we are talking to Julia, author of Witchcraft Cocktails. We are so excited to be here talking to Julia to learn more about her background. To get started, we'll have her introduce herself and tell us about how she has blended her passion for witchcraft with bartending.
Hi. Yes, thank you so much, you guys, for having me. Just to reiterate, you've done such a wonderful job with this podcast. I'm really inspired by what you guys have been putting out, and you're finding such unique people. I mean, all these stories are just amazing, with coffee and everything like that. It's really rad. I've never realized how much is out there. So as far as me, obviously, I am a magical mixologist with blending the worlds of witchcraft and craft cocktails. I've worked as a bartender for a while. I mean, within the last 5 years I started, and I zoomed through joining the Bartenders Guilds and working at a distillery and becoming a manager and working, as many bartenders do, 3 jobs at once. And before that, I actually, worked at a metaphysical store with some people who are now published witchcraft authors. So I've managed to blend the two worlds together in this little beautiful book put together by Adams Media.
So let's get into the metaphysical stuff a little bit, because I'm sure a lot of the listeners are going to be really interested in that, because it really is unique and it's not something you hear about, especially in this field. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so how this kind of came together, first came the witchcraft. And then when I started bartending, there's this whole craft cocktail movement, especially in the Bay Area. We have so many liqueurs and fresh ingredients, and the craft cocktail movement is just amazing. It's still growing, but obviously it's been kind of growing for a while now. And witchcraft expands time and culture. So there's a lot of different practices, but one facet of witchcraft is people mixing herbs due to traditional and sometimes herbalism together to create these really unique blends that maybe are associated with money, right? So jasmine, for example, is a flower that is associated with money, but spirituality and love and beauty and all these things. And so they put together these mixtures, oftentimes blending herbs and candles and aromatherapy and things that have this either energetic, or if you take a different approach, a symbolic representation of a particular energy or vibration. And so because I knew this from working at a metaphysical store, when I started in the craft cocktail world, it was just so natural to me. You're using these syrups, these shrubs, you have this mass amount of liqueurs, like rose liqueurs and things like that, and bitters. Why not make a cocktail that's for example, we have a blend in the witchcraft shop I worked at called the Mystic Dream, called Filthy Rich, and it's got these 5 herbs in it or so, and why not put the same herbs, as long as they're not toxic, into a cocktail? So that's kind of how that came together.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's very cool to be able to kind of learn as you've gone, obviously, and you've been in the business for a while now, and really see it firsthand, be able to do all that stuff. And the book has such incredible photos. Are these all your cocktails that you made?
Yes, the cocktails, yes. The photos, no. They hired an amazing photographer. They designed this. I am really impressed. But yeah, the cocktails are all mine. I mean, in reality, anyone who's a bartender knows I mean, alcohol's been around for a long time. It's ancient, and there's so many bartenders across the world. You can't really create a new cocktail. It's just not realistic. But you can create new variations that create a new flavor expression or a new intricate design for a cocktail that make it much different. So yes, I've created these expressions, or at least interpreted some witchcraft ideas for a few of the cocktails. Like a gin Gibson is a pretty traditional cocktail, but going into the meaning of a gin Gibson. And then there's some other cocktails that are specifically matching an energy or vibration.
And then you spun this into a blog first, right? Tell us
I
about
did.
that.
Yes. So this is kind of a unique journey. When I first got into the bartending world, because of my background with witchcraft, and I also originally wanted to be an author, ironically enough. In high school, I studied with someone who ran a publishing company and was an editor for authors, and tried to get an English degree, and then I decided I didn't want to be a teacher, so I minored in it. So when I got into the craft cocktail world, I instantly knew I wanted this to be a book. But that's paraded by a lot of self-doubt when you do something as bizarre as, mixing cocktails and witchcraft together. So I sat with it for a while, got the domain name, and then finally I was in a position with a manager at one of the bars I worked at, and they allowed me to create my own cocktail special. So we paired like tarot readings with the tarot reader with cocktails of the weekend that are like featuring a certain astrological energy. And this manager of the bar had done a blog herself. And so she's like, why don't you just do a blog? And I was overcomplicating it. And so with her ushering me into that, I actually turned it into a blog to start. So that's how that came together.
We can definitely relate to that with the podcast where we were first starting. We had all these crazy ideas and start overcomplicating it. Let's just start putting stuff out there and see how it goes.
Exactly. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, figure it out as you go.
When you were doing these specials, did who were you working for at the time, and did the theme of the venue kind of relate to the whole witchcraft theme that you were going on?
Yeah. So, it was called Bar 41 in Oakland. It's no longer around, but it was really cool. The owner, Chris, had this great idea because, Oakland, Bay Area, we're talking about activism. And so he wanted to create a bar that was really representative of that. So we donated a lot of proceeds to different causes. And part of that was, witchcraft definitely fit in with that kind of vibe of, activism and ideas that are a little different. And so it fit in naturally kind of with that, hippie Bay Area, open-minded vibe. And it was kind of cool doing like the pairing with the tarot readings and stuff. So yeah, that's how that came together.
And with
we're from Massachusetts. Have you been up to Salem? Because that's, I feel like, the hot spot around here.
I know. Ironically enough, I haven't, but I have to go out there after this. I don't have
Totally
an excuse anymore. Although with the Bay Area and COVID, the situation's a little weird here right now. So I don't know when I'm going to be traveling, but hopefully soon.
Now, with the witchcraft, is this something that you were kind of born and raised into, or did you pick this up later in life?
Definitely not raised into, born into. I would say yes, because I honestly was kind of like searching for witchcraft my whole life. Everyone has their own what we call broom closet story. But my family, like, they most of the time, they don't even approve of me, some of them now, still bartending, let alone the witchcraft part. So that was like, I kind of was searching for witchcraft my whole life. And then when I finally found that like people actually practice this now, I dove into it and then found bartending. So I put my way in there, but was not raised into it whatsoever.
And here you are, a published author. So that's awesome and a huge accomplishment. So
it's a lot of fun telling people that I am an author of a book on witchcraft and cocktails. Like it's a very eccentric combination.
Yes, very cool hybrid. Can you tell us more about the book and what our listeners can expect to get out of it if they, purchase it for themselves?
Yes. So I tried to pack a bunch into this book. But, there's a wide range of what I'm covering with witchcraft and cocktails. You don't really know where people are going to land on the spectrum when they open a book. So I try to include a variety of information on both witchcraft and cocktails. This is just dipping a toe in. You can go into so many more topics and it just expands across cultures. But there's some stuff on, basic witchcraft, astrology, crystals, tarot, and then obviously the craft cocktails and bartending tips and tricks from an actual bartender. Like my favorite trick, which do safely if you do this, but is like expressing a peel over a match, because there's the natural oils and a peel of a citrus and you squeeze it over a match and this creates this fun flame that always entertained my bar guests. So there's like cocktail tricks like that, shrubs, syrups, infusions, and there's a variety of recipes from more beginner basic stuff, like covering things like just a teeny twist on a tequila sunrise and what are the traditional witchcraft associations of that based off of the ingredients, based off of what tequila and orange juice represent or what they're made out of. And there's some more advanced things too to try and cover a variety of topics so everyone can kind of find something or use it as inspiration to create something of their own.
And in becoming an author, did you really enjoy the process of writing? Is this your first book, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Right? Yep. So do you plan on more coming down the pipeline?
I do. We'll see what happens. I mean, that's part of, working with the publisher and seeing what they think. I'm curious to see what the reaction will be. And, I definitely have ideas on where to go from here, but, seeing what everyone else is interested in. The process, I had a very short deadline with this. So this was like a stress-induced I already had some of the cocktails from when I was a bartender and stuff, and I had all the ideas, but I basically, when it came to the holidays and everything, I had, basically a month and a half to write it. So it was very quick, but I plan to have a lot more time in the future to write something a little more extensive. So.
And what are some of your favorite cocktails for yourself when you're just relaxing at home?
Ooh, okay. Well, one thing is I'm Polish. So my family is from Poland. I have dual citizenship. So vodka is a go-to. It's probably why I worked in a vodka distillery. It's a very natural fit. I also personally love tequila. It just has, I know a lot of people stray away from tequila, but it just gives me energy, So tequila is a personal favorite. If I'm going out to a bar, it will usually actually just be a tequila on the rocks. But in terms of cocktails, my Yule Mule from the book, I really love. It has an Earl Grey ginger syrup. And tequila sunrise is also another natural one because of the tequila and stuff in Manhattan. I like to drink a little bit of everything, to be honest.
And with tequila, where do you stand? What variety do you like best when it comes to Blanco, Reposado, and Añejo?
For some reason, I don't really tend to like reposados. I'm not quite sure why. So it's either I'm on the Blanco or Añejo side for those two. I don't know why the reposados tend to not just stick with me as well, but it's either usually Blanco or Añejo.
Great. Yeah, Paul, my fiance, and I love the spicy margaritas and all the different flavored tequilas.
Yes.
We're not very, we're not very out there when it comes to the flavors that we're drinking, but they're so good.
Yeah, there's a lot out there, and tequila is especially an interesting subject. So I think you guys had a podcast, you had a podcast about rum, not necessarily tequila quite yet, but
So we do have a tequila one coming out. You can stay tuned for it. Bianca enjoying the spicy margaritas. Have you heard of Ghost Tequila?
I have, yes.
Yep.
I've seen you guys post them on your feed. That's where I heard of them.
So Ghost is on. Yep, they'll be here. They're ghost pepper infused tequila. So it's got that ghost pepper heat without being offensively spicy or anything. It's very good.
It's like the perfect spice.
Yep.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to have to try that. I can't wait to hear what you guys say on the podcast about that.
You'll have to make a cocktail with it and let us know.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
My mixologist skills are no good.
Oh, you just got to get a little creative. That's all.
Well, now that I have the book, I can follow your recipes.
Yeah, it's hard because when it comes to cocktails, being a bartender, everyone's flavor palette is so different, and so you've really just got to vary it according to what you like best.
So as a bartender, someone comes in and they want to order a cocktail from you. what's your process if they don't know what they want? If they come and ask you, hey, what do you recommend? What kind of journey do you take them through in figuring out what they might like so you can craft the perfect cocktail for them?
That's a good question. So the main thing is asking them what flavors they like. I think one of the interesting thing is being a bartender is a really fun experience and a very intricate one. The journey of making virgin cocktails is a very unique one because that's one where it primarily relies on the ingredients and flavor you put in. And so through trying to create good virgin cocktails for people or mocktails, the same thing is the same technique I use with helping guide people in terms of what cocktail they want, is asking them what flavors they like, what base alcohol, obviously, because people are very opinionated about like whether gin, tequila, or bourbon. And based off of that, my favorite thing was to either make someone a custom cocktail on the spot or suggest, maybe you would like a Moscow Mule, although most people know they would like a Moscow Mule if they want that. So
it's a hard one not to like.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And for someone who's very new to the process of witchcraft, and you have your tips and your thoughts in the book with the cocktails, how would you suggest somebody actually goes about starting to learn on their own if there's somebody who is not, in a circle already of people who are familiar?
Yeah. So that's the wonderful thing about the modern era is anything is possible. So if you can look up, like how I started is I rented books from the library, from the community library, ironically enough. That was years ago. So nowadays, podcasts, YouTube, obviously you're going to want to look across various sources because everyone has their own interpretation. But when it comes, like the reason why I love witchcraft and why people are drawn to it is it's empowering. And part of empowering is finding what works for you and what you like best. So look across various sources, look up podcasts, YouTube, get started. My beginning book that I loved the best was Wicca for Beginners by Thea Sabin. Now, I'm not Wiccan, but she lays out a lot of the basic kind of energy beliefs around witchcraft, but there's so many different beliefs out there, so it's kind of hard to nail it down. But that's a good starting point is, YouTube it. That's my belief about everything nowadays. Everything's on YouTube, so.
Definitely makes things easier.
And that kind of leads me into another question that I wanted to ask. With the witchcraft, does that tend to be regional? And I know you just mentioned the Wicca, so can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, the whole spectrum of that, where it originated, what the different sort of varieties are?
Yes. So that is a very complex topic. And I do have a degree in anthropology. So there's two different areas of which I approach it. Now, Wicca specifically, and these might get into like a little more controversial topics. Wicca is a religion. So Wicca, there's a like eclectic Wicca, and everyone creates their own variation, but Wicca has a specific idea about a god and goddess as well as other things, and it really varies. There's so many variations, just like cocktails. There's so many different variations of a Moscow Mule. But so witchcraft is a practice, which is different, and particularly in anthropology, the approach with witchcraft is it would typically be someone who maybe in different subset or different cultures would be someone who is rejected because they believe that they have caused harm on a community. At the same time, witchcraft would often be utilized if there's a circumstance where, like, if they're going out to sea to fish and there's an opportunity that possibility someone might not come back, they would use witchcraft or different folk practices in those situations to guarantee things in a certain favor. So that way someone would come home safely or something like that. So a lot of these practices, there's as many practices or more as there are cultures in the world. So it's hard to pinpoint it, but that's kind of why it's a practice. It's like it's different than meditation, but the idea is that there's a different approach to it. So it's kind of hard to answer that. There's a lot, like there's the fairy tradition of witchcraft, lots of different Wicca traditions. Like there's the Dianic witchcraft, Wicca tradition, sacred fires. There's just so many. So yeah.
And you have a whole section of fall cocktails. So I'm looking at this because it is now September, and this will be going live in September with your book, which is also being released in September. So what is more convenient than a whole section on fall cocktails?
Yes.
And some of them look incredible. Which of the fall cocktails should we start with? Because I am definitely going to make one.
Let me look here. I have a few favorites. So obviously you don't have time to make a shrub probably, but if you can make a shrub, the fiery Mabon cocktail is really good. It actually has scotch in it, and people are very opinionated about scotch, but if you try this scotch cocktail, even people who may not like the smoky flavor as much, it's kind of like a nice introductory cocktail. The Witch's Cosmo is a nice good one. It's obviously, I mean, witchcraft, these are a little more herbally in nature, but you can vary that. That's a good one. It has like a rosemary saffron syrup in it, and a little less orange liqueur in the Witch's Cosmo to kind of make it this more, it's just, I really like that one a lot. And I think I really like the Prosperous Pumpkin. That was back when I was a manager and had a Halloween party, and I was like, I need to make a pumpkin spice cocktail. I was actually a shooter, and obviously this varies a very different off of that, but I had to throw in a little pumpkin spice cocktail. So the pumpkin, Prosperous Pumpkin, is a fun one.
I mean, anything with whipped cream is better anyway, too. So.
I know. Most of the time I just get do the whipped cream on the drink just to have it by itself. So.
It's definitely become the season of pumpkin spice. So
Yeah, right.
when it comes to stocking a home bar for a person that's not, doesn't have access to all the ingredients and everything in a bar, what would you recommend some staples be that people get for their own home?
Yeah, that's a really complicated thing, because that's part of the reason in the book I was looking at this. I can't include like so many different types of liqueurs and liquors that no one's going to own these, right? So I tried to, in the book, like stick to a few repeating ingredients, and then people can switch them out as desired. Primarily, I mean, obviously, tequila, gin, bourbon, or always, I'm more pro bourbon than I am, just plain whiskey. I love bourbon. So the basic, things like that. Orange liqueur is an essential. So triple sec, Cointreau, Grand Marnier. Definitely need some bitters. You might make fun of me for this, but my family is Polish, so I have very interesting pronunciations of things. So I think it's called, I've been pronouncing it Ignostra bitters for the longest time, and everyone always looked at me strangely, and I think it's because no one else knew how to pronounce it. And then I was writing it in my book, and I was like, it's called Angostura bitters. Angostura. It was really embarrassing thing to learn. I'd been mispronouncing it for years, and I probably still am mispronouncing it, so definitely need to get a pair of those bitters. A lot of things you can create yourself. So you can try and look up how to make violet liqueur, but obviously you would need violets for that. So take that into account, but definitely basics like gin, vodka, tequila, and probably, I know I'm forgetting, rum. There's so many different types of each one. It gets really complicated and nuanced, but you got to start from the basics, and then you can add more per your flavor preferences.
I also love that you include the energies with each of the cocktails that cocktail then, emanates. When you actually are making something for yourself, do you kind of decide that way, or are you more like, if this is what I feel like drinking, or is it more like, what do I feel like feeling right now?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. So if I'm out at a bar because I love bartending, I will try more unique things that bar offers just for flavor to see what they do. But as far as like when I'm in the kitchen myself, there's a lot of different things. So sometimes it'll be like, what energy do I want to do? So if I did a giveaway recently, I participated in one, and I am creating like a custom cocktail for that person based off of the energy they want, and putting together a like aligned spell or like a ritual for that. So you can approach it that way. Sometimes we'll look at astrological events. So like a moon in Pisces, or and when I was bartending, I created one that was like the specific trine with Jupiter, Neptune. Oh, I can't forget I think of another planet, and creating a cocktail looking at all of the associations for those signs and planets. And then also like, summer solstice, winter solstice. There's a lot of like historical use. Like, for example, in the winter solstice, one of the cocktails I have for that is the Witch's Offering, which comes from, it's like basically kind of a spiked cider, although that's a very uncomplicated way to say that, but it comes from years of practice of offering, spiked ciders to, the trees to guarantee a good apple harvest for the following year and stuff. So there's a lot of different ways to approach it. It's a little bit of everything. Because every ingredient can have a lot of different energetic applications, that's why I included the energies in it. That way it kind of shows like, okay, yes, it's aligned towards this, but if you want to give it more of this focus, you can. if that makes sense. That was a very vague description.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
So the book, is it available online everywhere? Can people find it in stores? Where you plan on people getting their hands on the book?
Well, I'm lucky enough that my publisher, Adams Media, who's absolutely wonderful, they're a subset of Simon and Schuster, so you can pretty much get this book. I mean, order it online everywhere, especially with COVID. Probably better to order it online. But hopefully your local witchcraft store to support the smaller owned businesses as well. But yeah, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and there's a variety of other locations as well.
And the book official release date, I believe, is the day that this podcast is going live, right, Nick?
Yep, September 8th.
So we're very excited, and we will include the link to purchase the book officially in that in the description. So in the description of this podcast, all of our listeners, you can head to the description and hit the link to purchase. We will also put a link to your blog because you have some incredible looking cocktails and recipes on there as well.
Yes, I love beer cocktail. There's a good beer cocktail on there too, also in the book. But
tell us a little bit more about that one, because I'm a huge beer guy and I never really see beer cocktails.
Oh, they're the most fascinating thing. I mean, I have a wine cocktail in the book too. I tried to cover as many because there's just like limitless what you can do. But beer cocktails are lovely. I mean, obviously, it is a very unique thing to play with because it can go very wrong. Or sour if you like puns, but when you get a good beer cocktail, it's good. And so basically, like lagers or pilsners, you can do a darker beer too if you wanted. But there's like, what's the one on my blog? I'd have to pull it up and look at, but it has like ginger, it has bourbon and apple brandy, and I think lemon too. And then obviously, I mean, I throw in a lot of things into a cocktail so people can improvise, but if you don't have any ingredients ever, if I have like a fancy syrup, just do a simple syrup. You can buy it from the store. It doesn't need to be complicated, but I have an orange saffron syrup and just putting a little bit of a Belgian beer on top. And it's just, beer cocktails are a lot of fun. When they're good, they are good.
It's definitely something I'm going to have to experiment with.
Yes,
and before you go...
Oh, you did? Okay, I was like,
and I just sent it to there.
Yeah, and my friend, I think it's actually maybe a chamomile orange syrup. She threw in some cloves into the syrup. I didn't do that just because cloves tend to be more associated with winter, but throw in some cloves into that syrup if you can, and it can be real simple. Like when you're behind the bar, you have to learn how to do things quickly and uncomplicated. So like sometimes they'll like say like, oh, do this over the stovetop, literally, because I do things very quickly and my mind's all over the place. So I literally just set an electric tea kettle and measure out the water and pour it over the ingredients. So it's kind of like a tea, and then throw in the same amount of sugar. And it's really as simple as that. So do the syrup if you can.
Yeah, the apple brandy, lemon, and beer mix sounds honestly pretty good. Now I'm really, really curious.
Yeah,
so
it's a fun cocktail. Yeah.
And where can our listeners find you online and on social media?
Perfect. So the best thing to do is go to witchcraftcocktails.com. I lucked out. I bought the domain the second I had the idea, but go there and it has links to all the social media. And yeah, that's probably the best place to start to find me. Got links to Facebook and Instagram on there.
Awesome. And where can people online find where do you put the most stuff out? Is it Instagram so you can put out pictures of your cocktails, or where are you the most active?
This is a learning process. It's definitely Instagram. Right now, the hashtag is @Witchcraft Cocktail, because if you guys ever try and make Instagram names, I'm sure you know this, everyone out there like reserves a name and they have an inactive account. So I made this account like years ago. Someone already had Witchcraft Cocktails and they still have like 2 followers and the account's private. And I'm just, I wasn't able to score the Witchcraft Cocktails Instagram name. So it's @Witchcraft Cocktail for now.
Great. Awesome. We had such a good time talking to you tonight. I look forward to getting my hands in the book And
Yeah.
We're excited to try some of these cocktails.
Please do. And let me know what you think, Like I said, everyone has different flavor profiles. So make it fun, make it you, improvise, and tell me how it goes, please.
Yes, you'll see us tagging you on social.
Yay,
So.
I love it.
Yep.
Thank you so much, you guys. You're absolutely fabulous. And I love what you're doing, highlighting all these people. It's a lot of fun to learn from what you're putting out.
Thank you. And we'll
Thank
be
you.
sure to keep more coming. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yes, cheers. Na zdrowie.
Be sure to follow us on social at Uncorked Corner and on the blog at uncorkedcorner.com for a taste of more food and beverage content.
And if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave a comment, subscribe, rate, and review on whatever podcast platform you prefer. Thanks for listening.